Alright guys, part 2 of the Sentai reviews, and I'm going to be moving on to the next season after Jetman. Now, before I get into the gist of ZyuRanger, I'm going to point out some, like I said, this is the season that was adapted into the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And if you've grown up in the early to mid 90s here in America like I did, then the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, as badly as has aged, it's still one of those things that's kind of near and dear to us. And I mean, what can you say? It's not as good as it was back then. I have the first season on DVD because they've released it in 2 parts. And the more I watch over it, the more I'm like, but it's still one of those things that we care about. So one day, me and my brother were looking up Sentai stuff, and we came across ZyuRanger, which is season 16 in Sentai, and we wanted to see what our original Rangers were like, originally in Japan. And then we started reading up on it, and I was like, this is completely different. It actually sounds really interesting. So I went and hunted it down, and that's the reason I'm into Sentai. So I have to thank Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for that too. So, first off, the backstory. I'm going to try to cover this a little bit my way because there is some preluding and everything. So, back in the prehistoric times, there is a queen. I think her name was Bandor even at that time. Her son got killed by a T-Rex. Plain and simple, right? She gets really upset at the dinosaurs for this. So she ends up calling upon Satan, sells her soul to the devil to become the world's most powerful witch, thus Bandora, or what was her name? Rita Repulsa in America. She used her powers to begin to wipe out the dinosaur race, and the Guardians at the time, which were, well, not necessarily the Guardians, more of the Zord himself. We know him as just the Megazord, but his name in Japan was Daijujin, which translates into Great Beast God. So, and we'll find out later there's more to Daijujin than just being a mecha. And he splits into the 5 guardian beasts. Tyrannosaurus, and yeah, that's Z, it's really pronounced Tyrannosaurus. Zeo Mammoth, Triceratops, Sabertooth, Tiger, Petrodon. The 5 guardian beasts. They chose one warrior from each of these 5 main tribes to help team up with them and defeat Bandora. We have Geki, who became the Tyranno Ranger, or the Red Ranger as we know him. Krosh, who became the Mammoth Ranger, which is the Black Ranger. Dan, who became the Tricera Ranger. Boy, coincidentally, because the Yellow Ranger was female in Power Rangers. Boy, who was a Tiger Ranger, and May, who was the Petra Ranger, Pterodactyl Ranger. I assume it's called Petra Ranger. I don't know. That's how they make it sound in ZyuRanger. So, they fought off Bandora with the Guardian Beast and Daijujin, sealed her away on a planet that, like, orbits the Earth every so often or something, and put themselves into a cryogenic sleep. Just so they could be ready when or if she's ever reawakened. So if she was ever to be released, they would be reawakened to fight her off again. Take it to 2000, what was it, 2004? 2002, okay. Take it to 2002. NASA accidentally wakes her up. Her and her gang of weirdos ends up coming onto Earth, not in a sexual way, and just goes off and wreaking havoc. So the wizard who helped put them to sleep reawakens them, gives them their power coins, and they morph into the Kyōryū Sentai ZyuRanger. They end up fighting alongside the guarding beasts as they gradually get awoke, and they have to go into this weird world where after 24 hours you get turned to stone to get their weapons, which become the Dragon Strike Sword for ZyuRanger, Moth Breaker for the Mammoth Ranger, Tricera Lance, Saber Daggers, and Petra Arrow, respectively. What was I going to say next? After a while, they have to find the things called the Dino Crystals. With the Dino Crystals, when they're inside their guardian beast, they use the Dino Crystals and they're able to fuse together into the Dino Tanker, which is the first form, if you remember Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, thing where they're like a tank. It's called the Dino Tanker. And then they activate the ZyuRanger transformation, where it turns into the Megazord we all know and love with the horns and everything from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And it has the Great God Horn, which is the sword. So this goes on for a while until we are introduced to an elf kid who was around back when, who goes to awaken a man named Bry. But his father and the wizard who are with the ZyuRanger tell him not to. It was supposed to be like an anniversary. When this day came around, he would be awoken. So when he ends up getting woken up, he comes out of there and he calls himself the Prince of the tribe that Geki, or the ZyuRanger, was from. And then he morphs into the Dragon Ranger, which we know as the Green Ranger with the shield and everything. Tommy's counterpart, basically. He ends up jumping in ZyuRanger and throws the Rangers out of him and proceeds to kick the crap out of them. So they're confused, thinking, oh, look, we've got a new partner. Yeah, he ends up kicking our butts. What do we do? So I'm gonna stop the story a little bit, and this is the first time that there was a 6th Ranger added. From Go Ranger all the way up until Jetman, the group that was there at the beginning was it. Now, granted, there were like some temporary people, I guess, that kind of came in for like an episode or two and then left, but this was the first real newly added 6th Ranger. And that's one thing that ZyuRanger set a benchmark to, along the things that the mechas were actually kind of living creatures and not, animals in some kind of vehicle-looking form. So this is, thank ZyuRanger for the tradition of the new 6th Ranger, something that, most Sentais and just about every Power Ranger season afterward follow, especially Lightspeed Rescue, which had to break away from Go-Go 5 in order to keep that tradition alive. So we'll end up wondering, well, why the heck is this guy attacking them? So, he ends up, Bry, or the Dragon Ranger, ends up teaming up with Bandora. We found out that, well, him and Geki are actually brothers. And he claims that Geki stole his right to the throne. So after they became ZyuRangers, he wanted to become a ZyuRanger himself. So he made his own, stuff. And when he finally became the Dragon Ranger, Pandora's already put to sleep. They're already put to sleep. He's ticked. So he goes and buries himself in a tomb and put himself to sleep so he would be awoken with them. After ZyuRanger gets supposedly killed and brought back, he gets sent to this timeless room, saying that he was killed when he was sleeping in that cave. So he's basically being brought back to life, literally his life is being held on by a thread, literally like a candle thread, because his life force is tied to this green candle. Whenever he leaves this timeless room, the candle starts to fade, and when it fades, he's dead. That's it. But when he's in that timeless room, the candle doesn't burn out. So now he's got to be careful here, but he still is Bandora. So let me get the name of this weapon real quick. Then he is given. Crap, what was the name of this stupid thing? Personal. Oh yeah, the ZyuRanger. He's given the ZyuRanger. I'm trying to remember the name of it. The ZyuRanger is the dragon dagger, the flute dagger, whatever the heck you want to call it. The ZyuRanger. With this, he said, you have your own guardian beast, Dragon Caesar. And I think you should all know who that is. So he ends up calling up Dragon Caesar to go rampage on the city. And then the guardian beasts get reawakened. Tyrannosaurus goes one-on-one with Dragon Caesar, while the ZyuRanger and Dragon Ranger have a one-on-one. And this is probably one of the best moments in ZyuRanger, because this fight between the Tyranno and Dragon Ranger is amazing. It's almost the same as it was in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when Tommy and Jason went against one another, but it's kind of censored. So, to an extent, it's got like 5 or 6 seconds cut out. But that's basically what happens. They fight. Geki convinces him that he didn't do anything wrong, whatever, so they end up joining up, but he runs away. And they're like, well, where did he go? Well, he's back in the Timeless Room. So this goes on for a little bit, until Bandora decides to, you know what, let me put this evil pole in the ground and try to resurrect Satan. Try to bring Satan back. So she ends up sacrificing kids, puts them in the pole, and then uses that energy to bring Satan back. Kind of see why this wasn't really adapted 100% into Power Rangers here in America. So at this point, they have kind of brought back King Brachion. Not brought back, but have brought him along. King Brachion is, what was his name in Power Rangers? He's the white. Crap, I forgot the name of that dinosaur already. The long-necked one. Brontosaurus. Yeah, he's the white one. His name's King Brachion. They've brought him along, so they have every piece of the puzzle. ZyuRanger later kind of reveals that this is the reason why Bri was brought back to life. He was brought back to life to help summon Dragon Caesar and to help bring King Brachion back to form the final mecha of the season, Ultimate ZyuRanger, which is Caesar's head and stuff put on ZyuRanger's body, with his chest put on King Brachion, stands on Brachion, and it's what the Ultra Zord in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I think is what they called it. And they said that back when the final battle between God and Satan had erupted, and they said that God was Ultimate ZyuRanger. So yeah, if you look at it, Bandora and her groupies are the warriors of Satan, while the ZyuRangers are the warriors of God. Kind of see why this would not have worked here in America. It would have caused a lot of backlash. Even in the early 90s, it would have caused a lot of, issues. So, Ultimate ZyuRanger sends Satan away again. Then they find out about Bri's little candle issue. Little candle issue. And they try to find a way to help. They end up finding that, I forgot to mention that, there's this ghost of life, or spirit of life, that is in charge of the Timeless Room that Bri's in, and he's watching over him. The ZyuRangers find out that there is a water in a mystical place that allows anybody's life force to be fully restored if they drink it. So the Mammoth Ranger and Tricera Ranger go after this water, while the others try to fight off this what is it, Dora monster that can transform into whatever it sees, and it kind of transformed into ZyuRanger, and people thought that the ZyuRangers were rebel, like turning against people, so they had to destroy this thing quickly. And Bri was on his last hinge of life at this point, because the Bandora destroyed the Timeless Room, so he has no place to hide. So his death is inevitable at this point. And when they get to the fountain, the statue comes to life. And when Bri dies, the statue turns into that ghost was was watching over Bri and said that ZyuRanger brought him back to life just so you guys can form Ultimate ZyuRanger for the first time. That's it. There's nothing else you can do for him. So the 5 ZyuRangers, kind of pout, obviously, and it hits Geki like crazy because this was his brother. Before he goes, Bri gives Geki the Zuzoskin and the Dragon Shield to use for his own will. So occasionally you'll see Geki running around with the Dragon Shield and both the Dragon Strike Zord and the Zuzoskin, which I really like. Coming up to the end of the season here, Right Satan is getting ready to come back. They didn't finish him off, they just sent him away. So he comes back and he's killing people like crazy. He ends up killing Brachion, ZyuRanger, and Dragon Caesar. So now that they're gone, their Dino Bucklers, which are the belt buckles that they use to morph, the coins don't work anymore. So they have to go into this weird underworld that Bri helped open up for him. When Spirit came back and helped open this door to go find them. And apparently they're not destroyed, they're just kind of sealed away by Satan. So they have to go and find them. Geki frees them. They get revived. Bandora's son, who was brought back to life by Satan, is using like his own mecha that he built. And Ultimate ZyuRanger has to fight both of them. They end up blowing up the mech, and the Ultimate ZyuRanger ends up blowing up Satan, killing him completely, I guess. It was a really, really quick thing, though, because he just shot at him once and then just blows up. I was like, that's kind of depressing that it ended that quickly. Oh well. And then his son comes back up to Bandora's castle. She leans over and cries for him now. That's kind of something. The ZyuRangers end up getting into her castle. All of a sudden Bandora doesn't have any powers. What's this about? Well, ZyuRanger said, "Oh, you cried because of your son's death. When a witch cries, she loses her powers." Alright. So ZyuRanger brings up a jar, seals them in the jar, and just skyrockets them into space. The ZyuRangers and the Guardian Beasts end up going up to heaven, and that's that. I completely skipped over the plot point with the 2 dinosaur eggs that they're trying to keep alive throughout the season. That the dinosaur eggs got destroyed, then the Guardian Beast would die as well. They hatched at the end of the season. I kind of skipped over that plot point that was actually kind of important throughout the season. It was like an underlying subplot that was going on. So yeah, a lot different than Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, huh? Yeah. This season honestly isn't really frowned upon among the Sentai community. I personally really, really like it just because of the whole biblical approach, I guess is how you can say it, with the whole God versus devil thing. And the mystical things about it, because Aladdin's genie showed up once. Frankenstein had an appearance. There was a vampire. All in all, the season just runs off mystical, magical stuff. And like a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it was what? Technology versus magic. In ZyuRanger, it's good magic and God's will or God's power versus evil witchcraft and Satan's power. So it's kind of a, how do I put this without sounding religiously impaired? Armageddon-ish? That's not even a word, but just go with it. Because isn't Armageddon supposed to be like, the final battle between God and Satan and stuff? Kind of, I guess you can consider it like that. I think the main reason why people don't like the season is because this show is actually really child friendly compared to like Jetman and the next season ZyuRanger, which I'll be talking about next time, it's actually a really, really kiddish season because they always have like a kid companion in every episode, and they always talk about, reaching your dreams and all this stuff, and it just wasn't as violent as Jetman, especially, and ZyuRanger later just wasn't nearly as dark and vicious and everything. It was more leaned back and stuff. But I really, really like this season, not because it's tied to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, although that might have a little bit to do with it, but the reason I like this season so much is because of how it went about with the whole God versus Satan aspect of things. You don't normally see stuff like that here in America because, obviously it would start like a big controversy, riot, and Fox News would be claiming the people's heads who came up with this show and everything, because that's what they always do. And it was like a breath of fresh air for me. Plus, it was nice to see my favorite Rangers, my favorite American Rangers, that is, in their real forms. And I really, really like how it was done. But the main thing that I think that carried ZyuRanger was the whole Dragon Ranger stuff, with his backstory, what he was going through, and how he went out, and everything. And his death was really, really sad, and he's my second favorite all-time Ranger, behind someone we'll talk about later. And just I really like ZyuRanger. I mean, I can kind of see why it's not very popular among the fan base, but personally, I really, really like it. I think it's something that you should at least check out if you've had any emotional ties to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I think you should at least give it a chance just to see how these Rangers are really supposed to be. It's a lot better than Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. There's no question about that. Theme song, on the other hand, that goes to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That song's a classic. The ZyuRanger theme is actually kind of bland. The first time I heard the ZyuRanger theme, I was like, "That's it. This is kind of depressing." It's a good song though. It's just compared to some of the other Sentai themes, and especially the Mighty Morphin theme song, it's really blah. It doesn't lack any energy. So yeah, it's kind of lenient. If you're one of those people that doesn't like kind of a laid back, kind of soft, semi childish type Sentai show thing, then you may not like this season. But if you can overlook that stuff and just take it as it is and look at it, as the whole show's story in general, and kind of look over the kiddie aspects and the kid-friendly sections and stuff, it's a really, really good story. I don't think any of the Sentais are going to have something mystical like this, because everything is based around magic and like fairy tales and everything. Like I said, Aladdin's genie is in one episode. Frankenstein gets put into an episode. I think there's a mummy section. There's a lot of like mystical worlds that they go to. Crap, what was the thing? There was like a gremlin or something that they had to deal with. It's just, if you like any of those mystical stories and stuff like that, then more than likely there's going to be something resembling that in ZyuRanger. So yeah, it just got finished subbed like 2 months ago, so it's a pretty newly released sub. So go check it out. Grown Ups in Spandex is the only people that did it. TV Nihon is only like 17 episodes in, but Grown Ups in Spandex had just finished it like a month or two ago. So I'd recommend you go watch it, especially if you like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers like I do. It's really, really, really interesting how this season was handled. So, next time I'll be talking about Kosei Sentai ZyuRanger, which is the season where we got the White Ranger, which was Tommy's second form, the White Ranger with the other shield, and the Thunder Zords that form the Thunder Megazord and stuff. We got those from this season. We never got the other uniforms and stuff, and yeah. So what had ZyuRanger? Mm, ew.